Hey everyone, Spicy Toast Game here. Hope you're having a great day. Hope this video can make it a little bit better. I just thought I'd try to do a quick guide for you for the Bilgewater or Twisted Fate encounter. I know some people are struggling with it, so just want to give you some tips and tricks to try to make this a little bit easier for you. So up first, this is in the new adventure, so we have the drafting or assembling a team gimmicks. You get 2 extra rerolls, but then you are drafting your deck. Now, this alone is going to make some champions a lot better and some champions, some other ones, a lot weaker. Those are really relying on their deck. So some champions you normally want to avoid are ones that have very specific cards they want to play. So for an example, like Evelyn, you really need some of your other husk generating cards. And so getting rid of those cards can be a little rough, especially if you're not able to draw other ones. Do note though, for this assembling a team, a lot of the constellations have upgrades for cards you can find in adventures. One example is like Vex. You have your constellation upgrade that spells you have in adventures have 4 extra damage. Those will apply when you are trying to draft and assemble a team. So for some champions that have a very powerful effects in their constellation, like Vex, they can be very good here. Also note that any champions that are just focused on the champion themselves, especially if you're going for like an echoing spirit build where you're really just relying on your champion, playing them a ton, they can be very good in this just event overall, because for some of them it doesn't really matter what the support deck is. You're just able to rely on your champion and absolutely blast. Now for this encounter specifically though, one of the more annoying modifiers is the wheel and deal or round start. Grant the 3 leftmost cards in the player's hand fleeting, so that means they're going to get discarded at the end of the round. So one thing to be aware of this is when you first start the game and you offer the 4 cards that come up here, those first 3 are going to be the ones that are on the left. So while you are drafting or re-rolling those cards, if those are some really good cards that you don't want to get discarded, but you know you can't play them round 1, then re-roll them so that they're not going to be in your opening hand, because again, those 3 cards are the ones that are going to get that fleeting. So try to make sure those first 3 are either a card you are going to play round 1, or it's a card you don't really care about getting discarded. So that's one tip for the wheel and deal. Now this modifier for some people that are able to be a lot spammier, like Samira, where you can play a lot of cards in a single round, this will not really be any problem at all. Also, some champions like Neela, where having these cards getting you fleeting isn't an issue either. But if you're playing a champion that you only really play like 1 card around, kind of like a Leona or Elder Dragon, then this definitely can be annoying. Not saying you can't play those champions, but yeah, this will hit some champions harder than others. Now, I think the main issue people get struggling with though is the Twisted Fight encounter itself. So let's go take a look at his modifier that I think most people are struggling with. All right, so here's the Twisted Fate fight. Now, when you get into the actual encounter, he has 999 health, so you're normally going to have to try to win through this, but if you are playing a pretty broken champion, you can just work on absolutely annihilating that health pool. But for most people, you're going to be wanting to win with this alternative win condition. So right here we have when any player deals 2 damage to a nexus, so it could be either nexus, they draw 1 card. The first player to overdraw their deck wins. If the deck has less than fewer cards, the foe lends you theirs. Now, this last part is a bit misleading. You don't switch decks with the enemy. They're just going to give you extra cards till you get to 40. So a couple tips for this. For one, try not to have above 40 cards, especially if you're trying to win by decking yourself out. You want to be at 40 or less if you can help it. Also note here that you have kind of 2 different ways you can try to deck yourself out. Either drawing a whole bunch of cards naturally or having a lot of discard. So as you're going through this adventure, if you can find anything that's giving you extra draw, that is fantastic. But then you also have dealing 2 damage to a nexus. So if you can be someone that does a lot of pings of damage, then this can be very good for you. One of the new powers you really want to look out for, especially on some champions, I'll try to throw an image up on screen, but it is the lethality power, where any damage you deal to the nexus deals 1 extra one, because there's a lot of effects that just deal 1 damage to the nexus, like Jinx, her star powers when you play or discard a card, deals 1 damage to the nexus. Swain, his 2-star, when any unit dies, deal 1 damage to the enemy nexus. Or there's even other powers you get in the game, like when you play a spell, deal 1 damage to the enemy nexus. When a unit dies, deal 1 damage to the enemy nexus. A lot of these different effects, if you can get the lethality, if you're playing one of these champions, or if you can get some of these powers, you'll just be able to do so much more damage and overdraw yourself even faster. And this really is an encounter that you want to be building towards pretty much this entire adventure. So whether that is picking extra draw cards, you can overdraw yourself, or trying to find more ways you can do little bits of damage to the enemy nexus, this is one you want to be focusing on. Now, I will also say, if you can kill the enemy units, they can actually struggle to overdraw themselves. So if you want to go for someone that has a decent amount of removal, such as like a Swain or Vex, and focusing on killing the enemy units first and then just working down the nexus, it actually takes them a little bit longer to play a lot of the effects to overdraft themselves, and then they can't attack or do anything like that. So trying to just kill the enemy units can also be a pretty good strategy, and you can actually survive quite a few rounds while you're also just worrying or working on overdrafting yourself. Now, a build you can go for on pretty much everyone if you have the relics for it that will really counter especially the Twisted Fate fight, is this one right here, going for big guns, shock and awe, and loaded dice, or well, any of the reroll relics, but loaded dice is the best. Since this is a drafting game, what you want to do is draft for as many one-cost units as possible, and then in that fight, you're able to attack with all your units. They are going to trigger this skill dealing 1 damage to the enemy nexus. But with the big guns, it deals 2 damage. So all these units are pinging the enemy nexus for 2 damage, at least with the skill. And some of them should be able to get any attack in, which will probably also do that damage. And this is going to just overdraw you like crazy because of the Twisted Fate modifier. And with the drafting gimmick, you can pretty much run this on any champion. And as long as you don't have absolutely terrible luck with the drafting, you should be pretty good. So anyone you want to play, I think this build will be able to help you out, especially with this fight. Now, these two are obviously the most important. The loaded dice is nice for the extra rerolls. If you need to throw in the Z drive, if you don't have the loaded dice, that's also good. But this is kind of the flex relic if you want to try to throw something on that would maybe support your champion or playstyle a little bit more. But having the extra rerolls can be quite handy for you. Now, I haven't completed this adventure on a huge load of champions. I've been testing out a lot of other things, but some suggestions for some champions I've played that have actually done pretty well so far. Ari can be really good, especially if you have her at 6 stars, because she can just go for builds where you're able to constantly play her essentially for free. She's really good with a Echoing Spirit build where you can just constantly drop her, recall her, she strikes the nexus and does just a ton of damage that way. I've actually used her to end the game not by overdrafting myself, but just killing the nexus. So Ari's one that is exceptionally good. Swain is also very good. I was able to end in like the first or second round by just doing so much damage that I overdrafted myself. With him, he has a lot of ways to ping the enemy nexus, and his 2-star is excellent. When a unit dies, deal 1 to the enemy nexus. If you can get that lethality power that I mentioned earlier, this just gives you so much extra damage to make you overdraft like crazy. So Swain is another one that even before you get him to 6 stars, he's very good, especially if you can get the upgrade right, where is it? Right here, spells you acquire Pyromantic Wake, just giving you some more ways to ping the enemy nexus. And Swain can also do a lot of damage, so if you're not able to overdraft yourself, since your damage is scaling with the lower the enemy nexus health gets, you can actually end up just ending by killing the nexus as well. Swain also has a lot of removal for taking out enemy targets. He has his gimmick of stunning the enemy as well when he's leveled. So overall, Swain is another, I think, solid pick for you. Neela can actually be surprisingly good here. For one, when the enemy has fleeting cards, you can just double those, so that giving you more fleeting cards isn't bad, and them giving you fleeting cards makes you draw more cards at next round. Now for her, she does shuffle any fleeting cards that get discarded back into your deck, which for trying to deck yourself out can be a little bit of an issue, but overall she is actually pretty solid. And yeah, right here, each one of the first 2 fleeting units or spells you play, they get doubled, which is super, super good. A build that I actually tried yesterday that chat recommended was just going for Oath and double star gems. This was pretty hilarious because with Neela, you drop her, you put all these champions in your deck, then you can probably play most champions for free. Since you're getting so many more fleeting units, quite often you can play these giant champions and get 2 of them on the board. And even if you draw one it's not fleeting, eventually as your hand gets discarded down, they will end up being fleeting because they'll be one of the 3 on the left hand side. And so you can just play them, get these really big champions, and I was able to absolutely annihilate the enemy with this. So very simple, but worked out quite well. So if you want a good 3-star alternative, Neela is pretty solid right there. Vex is one that I haven't tried myself yet, but I do think she'd be pretty good for a couple of reasons. For one, you have the 4-star effect of when an enemy dies outside of combat, deal 4 to the enemy nexus, so have a nice chunk of damage to the enemy nexus to make you draw extra cards. That's not too bad. But then also you have your damaging spells you acquire in adventures have that charging sigil. This should be very good with the drafting, because then any spells you see are going to have this extra damage, so you can just focus on killing all the enemy units and then attacking with all your units to the enemy nexus. And I think Vex should be pretty solid here for this game mode. But that was just a couple champion recommendations. I know there's plenty of other champions and builds that you'll be able to use here, either for flat out killing the enemy nexus or to overdraft yourself like crazy. And this was just a super simple guide. I might do one that's more in-depth later. I just want to get something out there to help you guys right away, give you a couple tips so you can try to succeed with this. If you want me to make a much more in-depth guide, let me know and I'll potentially do that later on. But I hope that this was able to give you some suggestions in this event overall, and especially in this Twisted Fate fight. As you can see, here are the champions I've used so far that are able to get through and beat this, and all of these did work out pretty well, but do note that for, well, all of these I do have them at 6 stars, so that's a little bit of a caveat there. But again, hope this helped you out. If it did, a like and subscribe is greatly appreciated. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and if you have tips for other players on how to succeed in this event, definitely list them down below. I know there's going to be a lot of other great tips of things I didn't mention in this video, but I just wanted to get this done and out there as fast as I could for you. All right, that's it for me. Hope you have a great rest of your day.